Hello everyone, welcome to my Evil Within, Akumu difficulty, no upgrade/keys walkthrough, and this is chapter 4, The Patient. And I'm gonna immediately go to the left-hand side of this whole entire area to kill this fat haunted over here. And this fat haunted, while he is busting down the door, you can actually go to this part of the platform and just crouch, and he will not know where you are, so you can just immediately do a sneak kill on him. And there we go. And I'm coming into this room here to get the contents of this chest over here. I'm going to be able to get some trap parts, and I'm going to be able to get a flashbolt, and you're going to see a big problem with the Agony crossbow. So, this is also the case in Evil Within 2, but watch this. See how it's not letting me pick up the flashbolt, and then I swap to the flashbolt itself, and it lets me pick it up? It's a weird issue with the crossbow on this game, and also in Evil Within 2, and it's all dependent upon how the game calculates your reserve ammo. So, you'll notice that when I swapped to the flashbolts, I had one in my clip, and then one in my reserve. Well, if I were to swap to a different bolt that was not the flashbolts, the game would classify both of my flashbolts as being in the reserve. So that's why I couldn't pick it up just then. So you have to make sure that when you're going to pick up a bolt for the Agony crossbow, you swap to that bolt, just to make sure you're not getting screwed by the game's calculations. But we're now inside of the hospice, and we're going to be dealing with Marcelo Jimenez's brother, and that is Valerio. And that showcasing of Valerio's face is very creepy. It gives me the chills every time I see it. But don't let his imposing nature get the best of you. He's actually very easy to defeat. And I actually discovered an exploit long time ago when I was trying to figure out what would happen if Valerio were to just leave the whole entire hospice area. And it turns out he's only restricted to this area, and whenever he tries to leave the area, he loses you. So he goes back into a stealth profile, so I can just immediately do a sneak kill on him. And I didn't have to actually deal with Valerio. I could have just gone immediately to where Leslie was. I just always feel like doing it because I like doing this whole moment of just killing Valerio. And then I like doing this, where we get to do this unique animation for getting the locker key. And this is the only locker key in the game that requires a unique animation, rather than just simply being inside of a goddess statue or just being inside of a box. So yeah, you get to dig around inside of this cadaver for a little bit, and then you just get this jump scare, which I'm sure everyone was expecting. I mean, a lot of people would consider that a failure in this survival horror game if they can't produce a jump scare that provides a lot of impact. But to me, I don't care whatsoever. If a game's going to have lazy jump scares, then most likely it's going to have pretty good atmosphere. And that's exactly what Resident Evil and the Evil Within embrace. They don't embrace jump scares, they embrace atmosphere. And atmosphere is very difficult to make in survival horror games compared to jump scares. And I mean when I say jump scares are very easy to produce. In fact, you can make your own jump scare right now. Just put on some headphones, turn up your device all the way to max volume, and then just play music, and you have just jump scared yourself. Simple. If a survival horror game is going to be embracing jump scares, then it's just embracing a very lazy design choice. I mean, look at the Outlast series. The Outlast series is full of jump scares, and the jump scares become so prevalent that it's like, oh, here's a jump scare there, oh, here's a jump scare there. Like, they lose impact eventually, and that's just not what a survival horror game should be embracing. If any survival horror game decides to embrace such lazy design choices, then it's clear that the developers have some very superficial mindsets. That's all I'll say about that, but right here, we're being introduced to a new enemy type, which is the Invisible Haunted. And I'm just going to use the axe on him. I normally save the axe for the doppelganger in the next section, but I just choose to use the harpoon bolt against the doppelganger. But there it is. He's very delayed when it comes to attacking you, so that's why I'm able to hit him with the axe. And we are now inside of this room now that we've done some walking moments. And something to bear in mind, when you're inside of waist-high liquid, you can press R2 without aiming to go into a blind fire stance, and when you're blind firing, you move faster while in waist-high liquid. And a lot of people don't realize that the blind fire stance exists, because a lot of people assume that it just doesn't work very well, but it actually works, but it's not a traditional blind fire. You know, you expect it for a blind fire, you press the button and he just fires. Well, in this game, he assumes a blind fire stance and then you can just fire. It's not very effective with the pistol, obviously, but with the shotgun, it is especially helpful. It's such a shame that they removed the blind fire feature from the Evil Within 2. It would have really helped when it came to dealing with certain fast enemies on that game. But go over here and shoot this explosive trap so that it doesn't get in the way. And we're going to be using the shock bolt that I picked up to deal with a bunch of enemies that are going to be closing in. So Rubik's going to spawn over here and he's going to block you off. If this was a horror simulator like Soma or Outlast, such sequences would not exist. You would never be trapped with the enemies. There would always be some convenient lucky pass that would allow the characters to escape. But this is not those games. This is The Evil Within, a true survival horror game. So plant the shock bolt there, and all of the enemies are just going to get stunned by the shock bolt. This is how incredible the shock bolts are on this game. The shock bolts in The Evil Within 2 are not that great. And they're only good when you decide to upgrade them. That right there, I got screwed by bad detection on the match. Either that or he just wasn't in a neutral state of rising up off the ground because he was still kind of inside of an animation where he was just like getting knocked down. So that's why the match didn't detect. But I managed to get past it, and I don't know why when he does that particular melee attack, when he's trying to get you off of him, it never seems to hit you. There are some really weird hitboxes on this game, and for the most part, the hitboxes on the melee attacks for the enemies is not very good. The game really encourages you to keep your distance from the enemies and just shoot them. That's why the hitboxes are pretty bad for the melee attacks. Not for all of them, but only for a select few melee animations. Some of the long-range animations that the enemies do have some pretty good hitboxes, but the close-range attacks that the enemies can do have some pretty bad hitboxes. But now we're over in this section over here. And you might be noticing that I'm aiming my gun. It's because I'm in a walking moment, and to move faster during those walking moments, just aim your gun, and you'll move a lot faster. It's something that I discovered, and it's something that speedrunners have already discovered. So get used to doing that when you're inside of those walking moments. But right here, we're being introduced to a boss enemy, which is Laura. You can choose to make Laura go away, and you'll get 5,000 green gel, but it takes too much ammo. Just run away from her. And there is a trophy in Chapter 10 where you have to kill Laura entirely, but it takes a lot of ammo. And you can get it done with just the crossbow if you amass enough trap bolts, but I recommend doing it in New Game Plus when you have access to the rocket launcher after beating Akumu difficulty. But lock the door, and she will not get through unless you decide to go for the ladder, which I'm about to go right now. And Laura has the ability to spawn from dead bodies, so you have to make note of where these dead bodies are. And also, Laura is especially weak to fire. Because of the fact that Ruvik himself has a fear of fire, that weakness has entirely transposed onto every single creation within STEM because of the fact that Ruvik is the core. And I like that psychological aspect to the horror and to the enemies on this game. The psychological aspects within this game have to be respected. Like, it's so much better than Silent Hill, for sure. And a lot of people consider this a Silent Hill clone, but this is just the evolution of Silent Hill as to what it should have been. But one of the best ways of dealing with Laura is to use a match on a dead body that she's coming out of, and I'm going to demonstrate it right here. And it requires a bit of timing because the match animation's a little slow. So get ready. She's going to spawn out of the corpse, and if you time it just right, she will get burned. The reason why I'm doing it here is because during this little camera moment right here, she can actually attack you. It's very rare, but it can happen, and I wanted to eliminate that random factor to that particular cutscene by burning her. Because by doing so, she's going to try to get rid of the fire by going to a different dead body. And there was a second dead body in that room, which is why she was very delayed when it came to coming after me. But once you get to this part of the area, the chapter's pretty much done. You just gotta do this little moment with Ruvik where he's directly in front of you, and you've got to move away from him. You don't have to run away from him, you can just walk away from him, as I'm demonstrating right here, because all he does is walk. And he will occasionally do short teleports just to get closer to you, but he doesn't really do it on this part unless you try to shoot him. And shooting him is obviously not the best choice because he's the core of STEM, so therefore he is an omnipotent being that you do not want to mess with. On Chapter 9, he becomes a primary threat, but I'll talk about him when I get to Chapter 9. But that is the end of this chapter. Stay tuned for the future chapters. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.